forgive me if I mess up protocol. Please forgive me. We have representation from the Uganda Human Rights Commission, from the JELO Secretariat, from the British High Commission, from the DGF, from the UN Women, from the Office of the DPP, from IDLO, members of the bar. We also have representation. We also have representation from the EU Diplomatic Mission. We have representation from RTV. We have representation from the Embassy of France, representation from the Dutch Embassy. We have representation from the Austrian Embassy, as well as several other delegates. Delegates in your respective capacities, you're welcome. On behalf of the Uganda Law Society Secretariat, I would like to thank you for honoring this invitation once again. We occasionally launch the Rule of Law Report, which demonstrates and portrays several instances affecting human rights, good governance, the rule of law in this country. And we launch it on a quarterly basis. This launch of the first quarter is very unique because it was coupled with episodes of COVID-19, the 2021 general election, and several other instances, which will be demonstrated in the report. We shall also present 2 other reports online, our election observation report, as well as our rapid response report. Instances, our interventions that we undertook during this period, the election period, to help members of the public and the legal profession. With those few words, since we are behind time, allow me to invite our president. President, you're welcome.
Please allow me to remove my mask. Our representatives from the JLOS, our representatives from the DGF present. We have Her Excellency, the Netherlands Ambassador. We have Her Excellency, the Austrian Ambassador. We have representatives from the DPP. We have representatives from the French Embassy, the Dutch Embassy, Uganda Law Reform Commission. You're very welcome. We have UN Women represented today. Madame Beatrice, you're very welcome. We have RTV. There's so many. Please forgive me. We have representatives from the British High Commission. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to the first quarterly Rule of Law report for this year. The last time we were together was the 22nd of December when we launched the last report. And I want to just ask you to give yourselves a big hand clap for being present, for always standing with us. For always being with us. We also have representatives from the US Embassy. We recognize you. We thank you because on 22nd December, we were going into turbulent times. Nothing was sure. We didn't even know we'd be here or have a country after this. So we're very glad. I'm very glad that we're all alive. We thank God. But I'm very aware of a lot that has happened since then. And I just want us to stand up and give a moment of silence to our late Archbishop, who we lost recently. Let's just do that. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Please take your seats. So since the last law, we established an emergency task force, which we knew would need in these 100 days following December 22nd. And I'm very glad to say that today in our quarterly rule of law report, we're also going to put a bit of the report that what our people have been doing. Tony, please stand up, and any of the lawyers that have been part of the task force, please give them a big hand clap. Your Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, we have had 100 advocates from all over the country that have been working and running around, making sure that they protect the rights of all Ugandans during this very sensitive time. And you're going to see in the report that we had about, if you will allow me, sorry, I just have a few bullets I'd like to use on my phone. Please allow me. Forgive this. I don't want to present any wrong data. So these people have been working very tirelessly. I think you saw some of them over Christmas when they were trying to deal with the Nicholas Opio issue. And I'm very proud to say that they've achieved quite a bit. Tony, I need that message. Please help me. I just wanted to get you a bit of, because you'll find it in the report, but I just wanted to highlight a bit of what we. Please give me 1 minute. Yes, so this rapid response report was set up to provide immediate assistance to any citizens that would be arrested in relation to any election violence. But we also knew that with what we'd seen in COVID, there'd be other forms of violence that would be meted against our people. So a number of people were arrested and charged during this time. And we were able to handle, I'm very proud to say, about 180 cases in the 100 days. And these were various offenses ranging from inciting violence, violating curfew regulations, treason, some of them, I think, for holding military stores. We were able to ensure that some of these were produced in court. We've been able to trace about 50 from the disappeared people who've been remanded, and there are others that are on trial in the military courts. I'm very happy to say that our people are currently ensuring that these people are presented even in the military courts. These arrests have continued as we speak, and we are probably going to have to continue with this task force, but because our people are a bit exhausted, we're going to rotate it and give another bunch of lawyers an opportunity to be the superheroes for this quarter. We have a group of people who also appeared on the missing persons. I'm glad we were able to trace them, and we thank the prisons and the security organs for their help. Because we've seen a lot of disrespect for due process, especially in the arrests and incarceration of these people. So the ULS with its pro bono advocates, I think, has done tremendous work, and I'd like you to give them a big hand clap. The kind of support we've been giving has been police bond for those that are caught, for those that are found at the police jails, bail, plea bargain, and legal representation, although we've also had to do investigations in order to trace some of these people for the families. I'd like to thank the Fourth Estate. In January, I'd like to thank Uganda Human Rights Funds. There's places that they can go that we cannot. Please let's give them a big hand clap. And I'd like to also applaud Parliament for the investigations that are going on right now. I think a lot will come to light. Former US President Calvin Coolidge once stated that in a republic, the first rule for guidance of the citizen is the obedience of the law, of the rule of law. As soldiers who constantly strive to fight for the rule of law, today is very important, because today is a time that we put our finger to the pulse and check the temperature of the state of legality in this country. We live in unique times and COVID has changed things, but I think it's high time we stopped using it as an excuse. So one of the fantastic things that have happened in this quarter is that we now have a vaccine. My son was so happy yesterday. He said, so I can go anywhere I want now, thank God for that vaccine. He's only 6 years old, but this was really affecting his life. So because we have a vaccine and because we've seen the mistakes that come from overzealous applications of regulations that usually have a very thin legal basis, I think it's time to change our perspective. It's time to commit to due process. It's time to become more accountable. This quarter, this quarterly rule of law report, for those of you that are here for the first time in this kind of event, is part of our strategic plan. One of the things that we do as Uganda Law Society is to be a watchdog for the rule of law, and also to ensure that we are advisors to government on good governance and any issues incidental to the law. So we've done this by continuously analyzing and assessing the rule of law issues through the launch of the quarterly rule of law report, where we name and shame and praise those that have upheld or destroyed the rule of law. It's on this premise that we've compiled this report, and you're going to see a lot of it. It's going to be presented to you. But I'm also glad to say that during the quarter, we did something. We observed elections. And I know that this report would be considered late, but we were doing it with about 40 advocates all over the country. We need to get all the data and collate it and make sure that we were giving you something genuine and worth it. And that is why we're presenting today. But I think it's also still very relevant because the parliamentary committee is still doing its investigations. So at a later date, we're going to ask for audience and present our report there. I'd like you to please give a hand clap to our advocates who observed. I hereby take this opportunity to present to you the first edition of the Uganda Law Society quarterly report on the state of the rule of law for the period January to March. It will also have a detailed report of what has happened with the task force that we established. The state of human rights, due process, as well as the climate of legality form the report today. It has critical points on the human rights abuses that include infringement of media freedoms, arbitrary arrests that have happened, detentions, including those violating the 48-hour rule, and disappearance of citizens during the 2021 general elections, and a lack of due process. We also want to emphasize that the purpose of this report is to craft a proactive and realistic approach to the rule of law challenges, and also map a way for real transformative change in the way we're doing things. We talk about the same things every day, especially when it comes to the issue of due process, but I'm very glad to say that during the quarter, we were able to also meet stakeholders like the DPP and the Chief of Defense Forces to discuss how to ensure that due process is respected, because mistakes will be made. Our work is hard, there'll be civil strife that needs to be controlled, but how do we do it and keep within the law? So this is a partnership that's just beginning. We're trying to use dialogue, and we invite each and every one of you to join hands with us. I cannot thank enough our support, the DGF, the UN Women, all the development partners here that have been part and parcel, JLOS, that have been part and parcel of all the work that we've been doing. We want to thank the Uganda Law Reform Commission that recently translated the Constitution into 12 languages. Let's give them a big hand clap, because that's a big step that we've lacked since the 1995 Constitution was promulgated. And as the Uganda Law Society, we are going to use this quarter to try and disseminate some of these constitutions. I'd like to thank you all for coming and officially launch this report. I'm sorry, I'm told I have not exercised the work that I was supposed to do here. I thought that I was just opening. Moses did not give me a brief, but just if you can go to a report. One of the things that came out in this period under review was unclear circumstances, and there were 3 cases in particular of dead bodies of women dumped in the areas of Nakulavye and Rubaga division in Kampala. These were later identified, but it was very clear that they'd been tortured, killed, and later burnt by the perpetrator, which is very worrying, and the police discovered and identified the perpetrator. So we want to appreciate the police for this. But we think that this is an indication of a deeper issue. We've had cases before in Entebbe, similar cases. And I think that one of the things we would like to do with our partners, UN Women and others, is to work with the Ministry of Gender and do a lot more sensitization of the masses. I think that if this wasn't a serial killer, then this is also a very worrying trend. We had media freedoms that were being infringed on, especially against Article 41(1) of the Constitution, which talks about the right to access to information. Of course, I'll combine this with the internet blackout, which really caused a lot of problems in the business community. It was pretty ridiculous, because this is also the time that we're supposed to be having the final investment decision that has to do with oil and gas and its exploitation being signed, and all the negotiations were being done online. So how do you do that when the nation is in a blackout? So this coupled with the arrests and the beating up of media, of members of the press, was a big problem. And as the Uganda Law Society, we've already offered free legal services to the victims of the violence that was meted against our press. This was on 17th January 2021. You can see those very disturbing photographs on page 7. This should not continue. This should not happen again. And we applaud the Chief of Defense Forces for actually openly disciplining the officers that were involved. But I think that we need to do something deterrent, and we need, again, more accountability where these things are concerned. We had unlawful arrests on page 9, illegal detentions and disappearances during the 2021 general elections. We had on January 7th, there were over 17 members of the National Unity Platform that were arrested. We also had 126 supporters that had been arrested in the islands of Kalangala and later taken to Mbale police. There were some opposition leaders arrested by security officers and stopped from reaching their campaign grounds. I think these are the things that are appearing before the parliament as we speak. And then there was tear gas experiences, and you can see some of these very disturbing scenes on page 9. In the disappearances and the arrests, we had desperate families looking for their people. The drone story started around this time, mysterious drones. And around this time in our investigations, we also were made to understand that there were some officers that were actually doing some of these things to pursue their own personal vendettas, sometimes even that were more related to civil issues as opposed to anyone having committed crimes. We think that in our recommendations, especially, first of all, on the media freedoms, I'd like to read our recommendations. We recommend for the immediate ending of the harassment, threatening, and abuse of the rights of journalists, and those found culpable and guilty for these crimes should subsequently be prosecuted. The ULS recommends the UPDF and the Uganda police from interfering in the work of journalists, and they should concentrate on protecting the borders and the people of Uganda rather than interfering with the rights of citizens. Uganda Communication Commission needs to also, we believe, acclimatize itself with the relevant laws to avoid further arbitrary exercise of authority or power not vested in it by law, because we've seen the UCC continually shrinking the media space. The fourth estate is an important state in the development and the democracy of any nation. We need, as human rights defenders, to fight for this, and we also need the government to uphold media freedoms. On the recommendations regarding this violence, the disappearances, we need the state to carry out an independent investigation and commission of inquiry into the disappearances, arbitrary arrests, and detention of citizens during the election period. We also ask the government to give us, the public to give us information, because we have pledged to proceed with private prosecutions under the Human Rights Enforcement Act, where government does not seem to act. We need the security forces to abide by the Constitution and international standards and principles on the use of force and firearms by the law enforcement officers, which require that they should apply non-violent means and use them only when unavoidable to protect life. We also need we also recommend that the security forces, especially now that we have identified these people, and a lot of them, we know thankfully they're alive and they're detained, and some of them have already gone through arraignment. We would like to call on the security officers, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Director of Public Prosecution to work together and ensure that those that are held in detention and have exceeded the mandatory period of 48 hours to be released unconditionally. Would also like the full list of people held in detention centers released, not just list of names, but where they are, what they've been charged with, and what we are asking for on behalf of the families of these people is for the state to allow access for their advocates, access for their people, their families. Civil rights and activities were affected during this time, and we saw a lot of, of course, we have our election observation report that you read, but we also saw and heard about a lot of issues where the civic rights of vulnerable and marginalized groups did not seem to have been taken into consideration. We need the Electoral Commission going forward to arrange the necessary facilities for the vulnerable groups to enable their full and equal participation in the next election. We thought that this was the biggest gap in the election that we saw. Breach of economic rights under the East African community. I think we've seen our maize being rejected. We've seen a lot of non-tariff barriers that are breaching the East African community economic rights that Uganda has. Our farmers are suffering, and the issue is rejection is not a problem. But it has to be done by legal means. There's a process by which any country, any member country of the East African community can raise objections to any products from any other country. And this has not been followed. We've not seen due process from our neighbors. And I want to state that the Uganda Law Society is exploring what we can do in public interest litigation at the East African Court of Justice to get justice for farmers and traders. But recommendations include the East African partner states to review, align, and strengthen their structures so as to effectively implement the Common Market Protocol. We need the East African partner states to have standard procedures on how and when to avoid unilateral decisions. Now, we do have standard procedures. We need them to follow due process, because we do not want these things that are done at the whim of individuals. We are together as a common market protocol because the nations and the people and the aspirations of the people of East Africa are getting together. And I think we should learn from our brothers in the European Union and realize that we shall not achieve Vision 2040 for any of our countries if we do not work together. It's ironic that this is happening in the wake of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and we think that the East African nations need to get together and be more accountable on how serious they are in this process. I'm very happy to say that the CHOGM meeting will be this year, and we hope that some of these conversations will be had. We need to stop being schizophrenic. We're saying we want regional integration at a continental level, and we're failing to work within our basic trade blocks. The jurisdiction of the court martial, due process again, and the climate of legality. We've had a lot of problems here. Uganda Law Society had a very good decision in, what's that here? Where it was established by the Court of Appeal that the court martial should not be trying civilians. However, this has remained in the courts, and this is our call to the Uganda Law Reform Commission, that the UPDF Act, the provisions of the UPDF Act that were declared null and void in that ruling need to be amended. So this is a call to the Law Reform Commission to help us. We're willing to work with you to amend these laws so that they align with the Constitutional Court decisions. The procedure of the right to a fair hearing, we've been seeing a lot of, I've talked about due process until, you must be tired of it. So again, once again, to the public, we have a helpline 0800 100 50. If you need any help, please reach out to us. If we have to refer you to somebody that is specialized, we will do that. But if you need legal help, if you have somebody who's disappeared, do call on us. Would like to also, I'd also like to state that in this quarter, two of the things that we're focusing on is using public interest litigation to put to life some of the wrongs we've seen. And one of these that was noted, especially in the first quarter, is the failure by the Ministry of Health to enforce the regulations in the tobacco control regulations. Right now, as we speak, we have flavored cigarettes in the market that target children and women. We have cigarettes and packaging that does not have graphic health warnings. And this is in serious contravention of the Tobacco Control Act of 2015. By January 4th, the regulations should have already established a council. They should have been effected. And as a Uganda Law Society, we are pursuing this with the ministry, and we might have to proceed to litigation for enforcement if this is not done. We are also very concerned about the tariff barriers, the non-tariff barriers that we spoke about, but we are also very concerned about the new tax regime that is being introduced in form of the bills. So you'll see our action during this quarter, and I think we've learned from our previous mistakes. We're not just going to make statements, but we're calling on the Ministry of Finance to be very aware of the economic situation of the people of Uganda while these decisions are made. This is a time that we should be looking at the economic recovery of this country and not crippling business, not crippling communication, not crippling access to internet in a time that we've realized it's almost as essential as shelter. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for that elaborate presentation of the quarterly rule of law report and also the highlights of the election observation report. Colleagues online and colleagues in the room, you have heard the recommendations that the Uganda Law Society has made with regard to this report, the human rights issues that have been outlined. And now we're going for a quick plenary session to get your reactions, contributions, and probably suggestions to the recommendations that have been made. So we're going to take the first round of 5, and then we shall have reactions to that. Thank you. Anyone wants to go first? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Simon Harris from the British High Commission. Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you, Moses, for the presentation of your report. It's welcome. I had a question around, and as you both know, it's something that British High Commission cares about deeply, around the disappearances, arrests, and detention of citizens. So I note that a lot of the work has gone on around individuals in gazetted detention facilities, and I'm wondering to what extent you're looking at individuals in, or the possibility of individuals in ungazetted detention facilities.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, who wants to go second? Okay. Going once. Going twice. I think, Madam President, you can respond to that. Thank you.
No, Tony.
All right, thank you. In regard to individuals, we've through our rapid response team, we visited some of these people in the detention centers. We're lucky to find quite a number of them at Chitalia, and we're able to interview them, about 103. We're able to interview each of them. We went with a group of advocates, and we actually got instructions to represent them. We got a chance to know the time they were arrested, where they were taken. Some of them are produced in court. Most of them are produced in the court martial. And the days that had been given had since passed. Some of them are supposed to report in January, in February, and by the time we went there in March, the time for reporting had passed. So we engaged the people at the court martial. We were in the process of getting the necessary charge sheet, and were advised. We had a discussion, a meeting with the registrar there, and were advised to file applications so that they can be granted bail. And we have a team of about 20 lawyers who are working on that, representing individuals in that capacity to get them freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Tony. Allow me now to invite Mr. Moses Okwalinga, CEO, to present the rapid response report. Okay, I have been advised that we are going to launch our rule of law report. And at this juncture, I would like to call back Madam President to come together with representatives from the different entities, from the British High Commission, the US Embassy, the DGF, JLOS, and all the other stakeholders. Thank you, Madam President.
Maybe we'll have a few of our representatives here. Your Excellencies, please join me. I'd like Madam JLOS, please allow me to say that, and Madam UN Women. So You're welcome, please. Yes. Come here, Rachel. Okay. Yes, Rachel. So, ladies and gentlemen, Beatrice, are you here? Yes, please come. Madam Sekaja, we're very happy you're here. Please come and join us. This is a monumental occasion. This is one of our human rights champions over the years. And please give a big hand clap. Okay. Hereby launch the first rule of law quarterly law report for 2021. Thank you so much. The people here that you see today are the people that have been supporting us since we've been in existence for the last 65 years. But I think we've actively been in relationship with all of you for about 25 years. And I just want you to give them a big hand clap, because without them, without their resources, their taxpayers' money, we would not be where we are. Please give them a big hand clap. Thank you very much. Please take your seat. Oh, wait, yes. Okay, can we each hold a copy? It's a tradition to do this. And can, if you don't fear us, you can just join us and just keep on your mask. Yes.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for launching the quarterly rule of law report. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me invite Mr. Moses Okwalinga to come and give his presentation on the rapid response report.
Madam President, heads of diplomatic missions, representatives of diplomatic missions, heads of institutions and representatives from the various institutions, members of the bar, all protocol observed. Allow me give you a brief of our election observation report. The Uganda Law Society was accredited as an election observer for the year 2021. We would like to thank the Electoral Commission for accrediting the Uganda Law Society and giving it status of an observer, despite several challenges that affected several other institutions, diplomatic missions from being accredited. However, we were ultimately accredited a few weeks to the election, and we took part in observation of the election. We carried out our observation process through our various, we have 21 legal aid clinics spread out across the country. And then we used the team in Kampala and the Executive Council to do election observation within Kampala and areas of Wakiso, Mukono, and Kira municipality. Media team is the report displayed. Would like to begin by thanking our partners who are listed on the first page. what supported us over the years: JELOS, DGF, IDLO, IRC, the EU, UN Women, the Human Rights, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, Danish Refugee Council, Allied Uganda, the Canadian Bar Association, Global Affairs Canada, the Norwegian Bar Association, the Norwegian Development Agency, UNDP, FIDA, LAPSNet, the NGO Forum, Uganda Human Rights Commission, among others, for standing with the ULS through over the years and for supporting all our interventions. We carried out observation in allow me just flip through the report. A brief background about the period. The pre-election period was coupled with several injustices, gross abuse of human rights that were all over the media. Noticeable are events of the 3rd and the 2nd and 3rd of November, where certain presidential candidates were physically manhandled at the time when they were going for their nominations. Most of you might be wondering that how does this have an impact on the election? But the events prior to the election have a major impact. And as the Uganda Law Society was our opinion that pre-election events also contributed to the election period. The other noticeable incident was the one of the 18th and 19th of November, where there were widespread riots countrywide following the arrest of one of the leading opposition politicians, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, which led to widespread riots and demonstrations across the country. However, what was more concerning was the reaction of security forces, which most forces and institutions considered a high excess of use of force, the firing of live bullets and tear gas into members of the public and civilians, which ultimately led to the death of 45 people. What was also observed was the use of the COVID-19 regulations, the Public Amendment Act regulations, that brought in the various SOPs and guidelines for combating the spread of COVID-19. What was noticeable was the disappropriation use of these guidelines against. It was noticed that you'd find that more members of the ruling party got away with breach of certain guidelines, which wasn't the case with some members of the opposition. That was also very noticeable during the election period, the pre-election period. It was also coupled with the arrest of some leading opposition CSO leaders, CSO members like Nicholas Opio. We also had a closure of some institutions like the Uganda Women's Network, which were considered as inciting members of the public against the state. And to wrap it all was the internet blackout, which affected several processes and our ways of life as a society, which was a fundamental breach to our media rights, rights to information and association. And this affected several processes, even those of part of institutions that were supposed to do election observation. People had to share information, people had to share emails, people had to share images, reports, but with the blackout, none of that was possible, which as the Uganda Law Society, we believed contributed to the election process. Maybe also what was also very clear was the failure to accredit certain election observers, renowned election observers. It was also noticeable that several diplomatic missions didn't get accreditation. Some institutions like CEDU didn't get accreditation, which was a demonstration of certain aspects that didn't go right during the election period. However, on a whole, the ULS applauds the Electoral Commission for organizing an election despite the several challenges that were created by COVID. As the ULS, we took part in the presidential election observation, as well as parliamentary and local council and municipal. We didn't have an opportunity to take part in the rest of the special interest group elections, but we took part in the main ones. And from the general observations, in among the 20 districts that we took part in, what was noticeable was there were some instances of delayed delivery of ballot boxes. Some of the biometric verification equipment were not working at some stations, like in Namugongo, Chaliwajala, in the Karamoja sub-region. There were also instances in Amudat and Gulu where the biometric system wasn't working. It was also generally observed that standard SOPs were not followed across the country. In most of our areas of observation, there was a blatant breach of SOPs. Several members of the public were lumped up in a line. You'd find that everyone is close to each other. Some people didn't have face masks. Some polling stations didn't have sanitizers and hand washing equipment. There were also reported instances of names missing on the register, and this was common in the Karamoja sub-region. We also noticed some instances of lack of privacy at some polling stations, and like in the Karamoja sub-region in Rakai, at Changogo Primary School in Chotera, where you'd find that for people who had disabilities and some members who are frail and old, you'd find that certain members would come and help them in the process of voting. So they would clearly see whom they are voting, which was a breach of the election guidelines that require privacy. It was also noticed that several election observers were not accredited for various reasons, some of which seem petty, which was an indictment on the electoral process. In some areas of Karamoja, there was a high presence of military deployment and around the city, which also scared off potential voters and people who came to cast their ballots. And that's how the pre-election period also comes into place. With all the widespread violence, the abductions created fear among the masses that some of them even stayed away from the polling process. There was also restriction to some polling areas, and this was noticeable in Amudat, where certain officials and observers were restricted from certain polling stations. In a brief, those are some of the irregularities we saw with the electoral process. However, on a whole, the electoral process, the election day was fairly calm and non-violent. However, you cannot divorce it from the pre-election period and all the irregularities that took place prior to the election. We shall share a detailed report with all the findings, all the recommendations, and all our observations with all the parties present. We shall share both a soft copy and a hard copy, detailing the rest of the circumstances given the time. Thank you very much. At this juncture, due to limitations of time, allow me to ask our head of litigation, Asimwe Tony, to present our rapid response report. Then we shall have a brief plenary session on the rest of the report and a launch as well of both reports. Thank you very much.
Please allow me to remove my mask. Good morning, everyone, once again. Thank you very much, Moses. Because of time, I'll just go through briefly. I'll give a summary. We talked about rapid response before. My name is Asime Anthony. I work as the manager pro bono project of Uganda Society. And at the same time, I'm managing the litigation department of Uganda Society. By way of background, we all know the elections. The Electoral Commission organized the 2021 general elections between January between the voting for most women representative and parliament among Uganda's general elections, the elections at all levels. And some of this violence is usually masterminded by the state, opposition, as well as private individuals who take advantage of the volatile election period to commit acts of violence. The one we had was unique in nature because it was during the COVID and we had those restrictions in place where we had restrictions on movement. There was curfew when people were supposed to stop moving. And if you notice, we had a number of people conducting rallies, campaigns, and some of them were arrested and charged with offenses under the violation of the curfew regulations, and not necessarily election offenses, but in a way we are connected. Now, Uganda has ratified most of the international on basic human rights and freedoms, such as the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. Now, if you notice, most of the people who were arrested during that time, courts were not active. They were still under care and lock. We are using the virtual proceedings in court. And most people who are produced in court were actually not, their cases were not heard. Most of them were simply remanded. And that is why we had a number of people, we had reports of people disappearing. Some people arrested, they didn't have an opportunity to contact their relatives, their lawyers, and we had a number of them missing. We used to call them missing persons. By the time you notice that someone is missing, it's a week. And they don't even know why these people are detained because every time they're arrested, taken to police, they would just be remanded. Some of them would be remanded in the night, in the evening. You find judicial officers working at 8 p.m. using lights, lanterns, and they're remanding people to prison. There was no chance for people to apply for bail or have legal representation. Now, because of all that background and the period we're in, the ULS, with support from DGF, came up with a rapid response as intervention, as a way of giving back to society. This is where pro bono lawyers, the ULS members who are doing pro bono, committed themselves to offering a service, free service to such individuals who had been arrested and needed legal representation. Now, this intervention started in January, and we're hoping that we would have given assistance to all these victims by end of March. Unfortunately, up to now, we are still receiving calls that people are still in incarceration. Others, their whereabouts are not known by their families. And we did this where around 100 advocates committing themselves and registering to participate in the rapid response across the country. And we've had interventions across in Soroti. You will share a general report, a detailed report. I will see we have a list of advocates who participated and the people who are assisted. But this is why I would have advocates called upon. Every time we receive a call or someone complains, we'd call the nearest advocate in that area to go and give immediate assistance. The most notable one was, I think, on the election, on the voting date, that was on the 14th of January, where we had a group of people arrested from Hotel Africana and taken to Chibuli, CID headquarters. And we tried to follow up. We had a team of advocates on the rapid response team who rushed there, spent about 2 days moving around the various detention centers where they were taken, and identified that they are being held on, I think, a holding charge of observing elections without accreditation. But the lawyers worked hard. We managed to get for those people, there are 26 in number, to get for them police bond. That was after about 2 days. And since then, that case has never actually taken on because probably there was no case at all. But these people were able to get their freedom due to the assistance of these advocates. Now, we've also had a number of interventions in Kabale, Soroti, Jinja, Mbarara. All the details will be in the report where these advocates have given assistance. Now, recently, you saw the Minister of Internal Affairs release a list after a lot of pressure of the people said to be missing persons. Of course, when you got these offices data, the pro bono advocates, to look for these people, were able to find a number of them who were interviewed, and we got to know the time they were arrested, where they're being detained. Most of them are being detained at Chitale, and the various courts they're going to. Some of them were produced in Bombo, that's the military court, Martial Court, Makinde, even CMI. And due to the nature of the court and the way they operate, it is completely different from the normal courts. And you'd find that even out of the 100 advocates we have on the list, about 20 of them were willing to come in and support these people. So we took up the matter, went to the court and decided to have different people represent different individuals in their individual capacity, because we were told, or we discovered, that these people are actually produced in the military courts and remanded to the various prisons or various detention centers, which are gazetted, but of course, the time that they've been there is not definite. The time they're going to be there is also not definite, because most of them do not know, are not aware of when they are going to come back to court, because they do not have dates set for them to appear in court. But the team of the 20 advocates I've mentioned, which you'll find in the report, has taken up the matter, and we are currently assisting those people. We're lucky to get cooperation from some individuals in that court, and they got us the necessary information. We got to know the charges, we got to access the charge sheets, and now we're going through the normal process of making sure they get their freedom. Now, overall, like I said, the ULS with support from DGF has taken on and represented about 283 clients so far. That is from January. And we have, and it's still ongoing because we are still receiving phone calls. We've heard of people have been arrested by drones, and up to now, as I talk, we are getting phone calls. Every time we get a phone call, we have someone on standby to go and give the necessary assistance. Thank you very much for listening. That's just a brief.
Members, I just wanted to ask that we clap for the advocates whose names you've seen there. Their work hasn't been easy. As advocates, we're just supposed to get clients and serve them, but they did a lot of investigative work, Tony made a lot of friends with people in the prisons and in the courts. I'd like to invite our partners to just come and let's launch. First of all, we'll launch the election rapid response report. And I'd like to invite our partners from the DGF to come and we're going to launch it in form of just taking a photo with the report. Yes, please come, our partners from the DGF. If your embassy is represented here, please. Okay, let's have the head of the diplomatic mission. Thank you very much. Can I also have our council member, Conrad? I see him here. Please give him a big hand clap. He joined us late from Gulu. Conrad has been leading that rapid response team in Gulu, and he's also had some sleepless nights. Moses, Tony, please join us. I'll now invite our other partners, JLOS, Law Reform, Human Rights. Please join us and we launch the election observation. And some of our members of the Uganda Law Society, because this was actually, we used ULS funding for this report and these efforts, the election observation. Please give a hand clap to the members of the Uganda Law Society. So we're going to make sure, please make sure you have your emails. We're going to deliver copies to each of you for the election observation and the election rapid response report.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I crave your indulgence for the next 5 minutes as we wrap up today's session. Thank you so much, Tony, for presenting the rapid response report. I'm sure members have highlighted some issues and some may have reactions on the issues presented by Tony. So if there are any questions, we're going to take a round. Yes, for both reports and the observation report as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for presentation of these reports. I have a few issues to raise. I don't know which report, but generally for the Uganda Law Society. Can we apply for habeas corpus for some of these cases? Because you have the names, you have, you know the places where these people are and they are not producing them in court, rather than relying just on the goodwill of the people holding them. Can we apply for habeas corpus? The other issue is we've seen incidences of torture and really very bad incidences. And torture is a non-derogable right under the Constitution. I don't know how we can approach this, but to really get the courts to re-emphasize the issue that torture is a non-derogable right. And can we use the Prohibition and Prevention of Torture Act for holding the people who are carrying out this torture personally liable? Because the torture law also puts this issue that whoever tortures can be held personally liable. If you are going to do public interest litigation, can we also do this and identify some of the people who carried out the torture and be able to bring them to book under the Prohibition and Prevention of Torture Act? Because we pass these laws, but we are not utilizing them. And then the other one is the use of international mechanisms. Can the Uganda Law Society also use international mechanisms in some of these cases? For example, there's a special rapporteur on forced disappearances. We could be able to appeal at the international level. There's a special rapporteur on torture. There's a special rapporteur on human rights defenders. We are not utilizing the international mechanisms to put pressure on government on some of these issues. And lastly, the police is spearheading the security of this country. But of course, we see the mingling of security forces. You see the army, the police, the CMI, and all that. How are we going to deal with the issue of training, because there's a lot of training going on for the police, but we need to train all the security agencies who are handling the security of this country. Because normally we think of the police, and sometimes we can say they know the rules, they know what they should do. But then when they are being assisted by people who have not gone through training, then it becomes a problem. Can we together and be able to also train all of them, those in the army and those in security agencies, ESO, and all that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sekaja. Any other recommendations, questions? Yes, ma'am.
And thank you very much, Uganda Law Society, for these reports. So my question
I'm not seeing.
in terms of the rapid response provided, are you able to give us information on how many of these were women, how many of these were children, how many of these were disabled persons, yeah? And then also in the election report, be good to know, even from the part of those who participated as voters and also those who participated as candidates. In the same category, you know, as voters, what challenges did women have, disabled persons have, or candidates who are women, candidates who are disabled? I know you didn't participate in the special interest group elections in terms of observation, but maybe that's something also you need to think about in future. But thank you very much for these reports.
Thank you. Any other comments, reactions, questions? Going once? Going twice? All right, so it's closed. So, yes. So, Tony, please respond to this. And
Thank you. I'll respond to some questions that Moses will also respond to others. I'll begin with the aspect of habeas corpus. Yes, we've actually had to do those applications for writ of habeas corpus in some cases where it is applicable, and I've had these people released. Interestingly, there's one who was released after this, and I was told was rearrested. So we need to follow up and. Oh, sorry. Maybe I can go back. In respect of habeas corpus, we've had to apply this. We've had to make these applications in some cases where it is applicable, where people have been arrested. We do not know where they are held. And I've had some of them about 2 applications of such a nature. And I was saying that yesterday I got a report that one of the people who made an application and was released has been arrested. So I'm yet to establish how and why. But you notice in some of them where someone has been produced in court already, you cannot again go and apply for habeas corpus. So that is why we take on case-by-case basis and we look at them individually on its own unique nature. Now, we also talked of personal liability and taking on some of these individuals in their personal capacity. The council, some time back, some of you have been following, made the resolution that ULS should actually begin taking on these individuals, because we have in our jurisprudence, we have cases where some of these perpetrators who do such offenses have been taken on in their personal capacity. But you also realize that we have victims from all over the place, in different places. And again, ULS, if you are to offer, even if you're offering services as an advocate, you do not give yourself instructions. So the council created a task force where we had an intervention where they're interviewing the victims and also investigating who the perpetrators are, and have a task force in place where we are actually supposed to take on those people in their individual capacity. And I think why we took long to do that, what delayed was locating the victims, to get the victims, their relatives, who are supposed to be the clients, so that ULS is not a client, but those people, because if you take on people individually, then there's a cause of action. But it is in place, ULS has considered it, and it is being done under the litigation department. I think Moses will answer the other one, but before I leave, thank you very much. You talked about the segregation in the report. If you're able to know who are male, how many are female, persons with disabilities. If you look at the detailed report, actually lists we have these segregations, and we also have the names of these people indicated there from every region. So we are able to know these are the names of the advocates, these are the names of the people, and where they were being held and what often says. So it is all in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. Madam President.
Thank you so much, Madam Sekaja. I just wanted to say that one of the biggest challenges we've faced has been information, tracing who did what, and really been eager to do this. We've even asked the fourth estate to help us. They always keep us accountable, and we ask them for information, because sometimes they have footage that actually shows us who these people are, and we are still tracing them. I think one of the things that would like to commit is that we're very willing to do this. However, we need information, because without evidence, we cannot proceed against the officers that are misbehaving. Then the use of international mechanisms, that is very true, Madam Sekaja. The reason we had not yet gone there is because, in our opinion, we had not yet exhausted our domestic options. Again, because we're still carrying out investigations, but we take this an advisement, and we're actually going to work on it. You made a very good point of mingling of security forces. If I told you that we'd had a meeting with the CDF on how to go forward, one of the things I'm very happy to report we resolved on is that the Uganda Law Society is coming out with a human rights curriculum, and the Chief of Defense Forces actually committed that they will give us access to their forces to train. He actually highlighted the fact that yes, that we'll do a training of trainers, because they have a military training institute, so that they train their own. But he also highlighted the issue of the use of LDUs, and stated that at the beginning, when they just released the LDUs and it was messy in December, they withdrew them and did some training, and he also welcomed again a training of trainers for that. So this is something that we're working on. As I told you before, we're working on dialogue. It's early days, but thank you for raising that. We're working on that. Again, we cannot emphasize enough how much information. Some of our partners, you have access to certain information. Please feel free to give it to us. We are here, we're your hands and feet. We have valiant young men and women that are willing to go to court for the rights of these people. Madam Beatrice, you raised a very good point. We also realized it after that disability, the disabled, the vulnerable persons, we should have paid a lot of attention and provided sources for that observation. And we're actually, it was one of our recommendations that we're going to go forward with. But that, we also took note of that. If you had some of our recommendations from the Electoral Commission, I think as a nation, we're having trouble dealing with the disabled persons when it comes to the I was in school with disabled people, and they have very many problems, and this country has remained a bit blind to these issues. So that is something that is very pertinent, and we had a meeting with a representative of the disabled, and we're supposed to work with them and the chief registrar to see how the new construction of the courts will include services for the disabled. So we're hoping that in the same vein, we'll be able to work with the Electoral Commission towards this. Thank you very much. I'd like to Now invite our northern representative, Mr. Conrad, a lawyer, to come and give us a closing remark. Please give him a big hand clap.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President, for giving me this opportunity to close. Our partners from DGF, diplomatic mission, our partners from the human rights sectors, the Law Society present members, and all of us. I want to say we're privileged for this day. We're privileged that we've worked so hard together with you as a team to see that this report come through today. A lot has been going on in the past, especially for this country, in regard to the question regarding rule of law, the question that surrounded the political environment during the elections and post-elections that touch the fundamentals of our human rights. We're happy that with all of us together in the move, a lot more will change for the betterment of not only the country, but also for those that benefit from the rule of law. With these few words, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your physical presence, but most importantly, for choosing to be present for this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Conrad. Members, if we may, we're requesting that we come up front and just take a group photo, and then we can depart at leisure. Thank you very much. Ken. So please come and help us. Sorry, Simon, for moving you.
Ya, ya, nakasausa. Sawa ya. Where is the diva? Yoni, akongere. Yes.
Gendo time Stella Nyandria, Council. Waludde wo otegedde essaawa ze. Mmere gireke. Essaawa zaffe tulina kuzimbula ssaawa nnya. Tukulisa emmere essaawa ennya. Mmere gireke. Otapulaninga ebyo bizibu. Ssaawa nnya zirina ozizimbula kati ate zitandise okukola. Ine namba ye.
Ndakupatire no maaso awali esala bale You should have just